Hi, welcome back to AlextheRed&More. Today I'm going to be summarising Liverpool's 22-23 season. So, the best way to describe it was especially of what happened in yesterday's last game, Southampton 4, Liverpool 4. Great attacking potential, but a big lack of control in midfield and an ageing defence that needs massive work on in the summer. The heading for the Redmen TV reaction video, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, perfectly summarised yesterday's game and the whole season. You saw the good parts in attack, the bad parts in midfield defence, and also the ugly, this in terms of like Liverpool being unrecognisable from like the past 3 or 4 seasons under Klopp. So taking it back to August, we had that first game away at Fulham. It's in the sunshine, if I imagine. All thinking ahead of the game, we're all thinking this is going to be a routine, comfortable win against the newly promoted side. Even if Fulham plays well, we're thinking we should have too much quality for them. But look what happened there. Unfortunately, we had to scrape in the end to get a 2-2 draw, and maybe that we really should have looked into that 2-2 draw more from the start, because in the end that did show a clear sign that something was not right at Liverpool this season. We then go to the second game against Palace, Anfield. Palace frustrates us heavily and take their chance to go in front, and then of course Núñez gets sent off, meaning Diaz has to step second half to at least get Liverpool a point, and that was even more worse than previously against Fulham, because they failed to win their first home game, and that was a clear sense that Liverpool are not going to be in any title race at all, because dropping 2 points against Fulham and Palace, who should be routine wins, is as clear as evidence you can get. And then of course the embarrassing defeat away at Man U, and that away at Man U 2-1, the third game in August. So that one really was a big turning point for probably the outlook, because how much that result more or less transformed United's fortunes, of how they've now had a much better season than Liverpool, and there was a big indication of that they would be above us by the end. And so, but after that we move on to a very big 9-0 thumping of Bournemouth, and a lucky late 2-1 win against Newcastle, followed by a typical 0-0 draw in the Merseyside derby. And then of course you have the big international break in the normally, because of the Queen's funeral, postponing 2 of our games ridiculously. But hey, probably won't have done well anyway, because we start with a lucky 3-3 draw at home to Brighton, first game back in October, then more than a lucky defeat away at Arsenal, and then out of nowhere we beat Man City 1-0 at Anfield back in mid-October. And then I was really thinking back then, could this really be a turning point? And we followed that up with a 1-0 decent 1-0 win at home to West Ham. I'm still thinking this is a turning point. This could still be a very good season. And then we move to probably the next big main negative turning point, Notts Forest away. So Notts Forest away, we first half signs weren't looking good, and second half was clearly even worse, as they take the lead 1-0, and they easily could have won that by more than 1 goal, and that really sort of transformed the whole season for Forest as well. And I think most would say that losing 1-0 to Forest ended any hope of a title charge. And then of course next week we go on to lose our game away at Leeds, game at home, only at home defeat of the season, at home to Leeds. And I really felt so bad after that game, like it was a horror movie, perfect, sort of like a very spooky to end October, wasn't it? Halloween being on Monday really did feel like being in a horror movie that night. Yeah, then, but at least then we still have 4 more games in all competitions left in November. Win all of them. Unfortunately, finished second place in the Champions League group. Napoli beating us on like goal difference, I think, or head-to-head. And that sort of like, and of course that meant we had a big chance of getting Real Madrid in the last 16, and that unfortunately proved the case. Skip forward the World Cup, we come to Boxing Day, have a decent win again, go up to Carabao Cup to Man City, which could have gone either way, beat Villa, and that was a decent win. Then of course, a very lucky win home to Leicester, and then a real big negative point where top 4 really did look very unlikely, even for the most die-hard Liverpool fan, was that 3-1 defeat away at Brentford, starting the new year with an absolute more or less battering, and as Brentford could have easily win by more than 3-1. Really did feel battering, and it really did feel like Liverpool entering into the Bant era long term again there. And then of course had batterings away at Brighton, away at Wolves. And of course, remember Cody Gakpo did something. Of course, he didn't really kick in form until another potential turning point, and that was home to Everton on February the 13th. Good. I was feeling very negative going into that game, so it was quite a joy to see actually Liverpool win against a rejuvenated Everton under Sean Dyche. Then we get a sort of decent / lucky but not unlucky win away at Newcastle for that big humbling, heartbreaking defeat at home to Real Madrid. Went 2-0 up, but they came suddenly back to win 5-2. And that just showed that Liverpool were not up for the fight against Real Madrid like they were in the 2 Champions League finals we've had under them. And that felt really down, and Klopp was being trolled around a lot of us then, and I still review, but of course I was still backing Klopp. Then after that we only responded with a 0-0 draw away at Palace, a dull 0-0 draw at Palace. Beat Wolves 2-0 is a must win at home, which was good. But most positive after that, the 7-0 thrashing of Man U. You may say, people may still make memes of that. It's our only pretend trophy we'll win, but in the grand scheme of things, I still think this may. And that 7-0 was a key sign of that Man U are not anywhere near miles ahead of Liverpool long term. Of course, they're better side than us this season, but that 7-0 win has so convinced me that Liverpool definitely bounce back if they get right this summer transfer window, and regardless of what Man U do. And I still believe we'll turn things around, as I say. But that 7-0 win will always stick with me, as how can the best United side, if United really are the best, this is really the best United side since Fergie left, and this is the worst Liverpool side under Klopp so far. How can we then still beat them 7-0? What does that say? Liverpool crap, but what does that say about Man U? Have things really turned around? Maybe not. And then of course, actually the big negative point of where many, I'd say even me, doubted getting Champions League was that following up not only for 1-0 defeat at Bournemouth, and of course a missed penalty in that game as well, and that really didn't set us well for the games after, the three tough games after the international break: City, Chelsea, Arsenal, and failing to win any of those really was the end of the straw for me with regard to top 4, as any sort of late run, which we did during the last 9 games, in the end proved too little, too late. But following on from that, there were some signs in those last 8 to 9 games where I could see Liverpool making strides in going into next season if we back this late form up with the correct signings, not with Trent's sort of new inverted hybrid role in the mixture of right back or midfield. it feels like he's going to be swapping positions across different games. So in some games he can still be at right back, but in some games he can come into midfield, so to help the team more defensive and more attacking wise, I guess. And then of course rejuvenated Curtis Jones. So apart from the new midfield signings I expect Liverpool to make soon, I think forget Fabinho and Henderson now off. Don't think they're good enough to start regularly, and most people should have that view. But the injured Bajcetic, who made great strides this season, but also Curtis Jones. Bajcetic and Curtis Jones are going to be very important midfielders for us now in long term. And you've seen this season why they are. We need them, especially Curtis Jones, because he's homegrown, and Liverpool, of course, need more of those now since they missed out on Bellingham. And then, of course, as I reflect before, Liverpool did get a late equaliser home to Villa in their second last game, but that sort of did summarise any late comeback they had was going to be ineffective this time compared to 2 seasons ago, where a late strike did get us top 4, but this season we didn't quite manage to get them in because of the increased competition, and we had less excuses back then as well because of playing in COVID conditions in terms of no fans at all. And of course, yesterday it really was the good, the bad, and the ugly, that Southampton game. And probably most are just glad the season's over, and probably certainly I am, because if you said to me at the end of last season, Liverpool would go from nearly winning quadruple to finishing just 5th and trophyless, I definitely would have said that's not acceptable. But of course I'm still backing Klopp, but this season in Europa League can only be a one-off. So that is my season review 22-23. Hope you enjoyed my review.